and welcome to the big debate. Amidst the intricate web of global affairs aggravated by the ongoing Middle East crisis and the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, the United States, led by Joe Biden government, finds itself at a critical juncture. As per the latest updates, US military, while retaliating against Iranian-backed militias and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, launched multiple strikes in Iraq and Syria on Friday. As Biden government faces mounting pressure not only from Republicans but the Americans too, the US military's aggression targeting 85 sites in Iraq and Syria on Friday is in retaliation of Iran's fatal drone strikes on the US base in Jordan last week. Meanwhile, further complicating matters for President Biden is the internal dilemmas, most significant being the contentious US-Mexico border issue, which has ignited several US states, particularly Texas, to oppose the Biden administration. However, devising a retaliatory strategy against Iran poses a serious challenge, as any action might lead to further escalation of tensions in the already volatile Middle East region. As all of these crises unfold ahead of the much-awaited US presidential elections, President Joe Biden faces additional pressure to effectively address these issues, to garner support from voters to secure re-election and give a tough fight to his rival Donald Trump, who has consistently countered Biden's policies and responses to these challenges. When the Israel-Hamas war first erupted, the United States immediately vowed its support for Israel. However, with now almost 3 months into the war, the Biden administration's policies seem to be changing. In the latest, President Biden has ordered broad financial and travel sanctions on 4 Israeli settlers accused of violent attacks on Palestinians in the West Bank. Not only is the move aimed at wooing the Arab American voters in the US who have expressed fury about the president's backing of Israel's war in Gaza, it is also directed to deter wider violence owing to the surge in attacks by Israeli settlers against Palestinians. Giving the order, President Biden stated that the violence in the West Bank has reached an intolerable level, causing a serious threat to peace, security and stability in the Middle East region. The Biden administration is also furious over Israel's blockade of salaries to Palestinian officials, including the Palestinian security forces in the West Bank. In a call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, which came after a long gap of 1 month, Biden urged him to floor salaries for the Palestinian authorities. It must be mentioned here that until now, Biden just called for pauses in the war instead of ceasefire, which is costing his reputation as he faces strong criticism for unabated support to Israel, the US closest ally in the Middle East. These condemnations have also led to blockage of military assistance to Israel, as Republicans and a few Democrats believe that the assistance is contributing towards Palestinian deaths in the Gaza Strip since the beginning of the war. The Israel-Hamas war in the Middle East has also taken the Red Sea, a crucial trade route, in its grip. In the maritime region, the Iran-backed militant group Houthis have been attacking commercial ships in a show of support to Hamas terrorists, which has forced the vessels to take a longer route to the Cape of Good Hope. As Houthi terrorists continue strikes in the Red Sea, the US Navy has been countering these attacks along with United Kingdom navies. Though Houthis said that they are attacking ships connected to Israel, the militant group has mostly targeted ships tied to the US. In retaliation, the US military has carried out strikes on the Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen. Though the US has been successful in counter-striking several drones and missiles launched by Houthis within the UK Navy's assistance, a detailed report by the British Broadcasting Corporation stated that the efforts made by the US and UK have failed to deter Houthis. The report states that instead of slowing down the attacks, they have increased mounting tensions on the US to act robustly amid the heightening crisis. There have been 9 attacks on ships in the past 3 weeks, compared with 6 in the previous 3 weeks, the report mentions. Not just the Israel-Hamas war, but the 2-year-long Russia-Ukraine war has left the Biden administration in splits. This is because on one hand, President Biden wants to provide Ukraine with military and humanitarian aid, while on the other hand, he isn't able to convince Congress. Due to this, the Biden administration is struggling to finalize a deal that would release $61 billion in aid for the war-torn nation. The senior US diplomat visiting Kyiv has confidently expressed that Congress would back the New Deal. Republicans are holding it back. This has become a huge challenge for Joe Biden as Ukraine is dependent on support from the US to beat back Russia's invasion. While taking a strong stand for its ally Ukraine, the US leveled numerous sanctions on Russia, but it is not able to provide the embattled country with aid as it cannot be done without Congress support. This might also mean that Ukraine will be left disheartened and battered and might also be on the verge of losing the war against Russia entirely. The US government, which faced immense pressure to act against Iran after the tragic drone attack on the US Army that killed 3 soldiers, launched multiple strikes in Iraq and Syria on Friday to strategically hit bases being used by the Iranian-backed terrorists. The drone attacks targeting the US had left over 30 service members brutally wounded, marking it as one of the largest attacks on the US since the inception of the Israel-Hamas war. However, the Biden administration is handling the situation cautiously and is reluctant to carry out a direct act due to looming fears of igniting a broader war. The latest development is that on Thursday, the US approved plans for multi-day strikes in Iraq and Syria. This comes a couple of days after Secretary of State Antony Blinken stated that the country would surely respond strongly against any efforts made to incite violence against US personnel, with even Republicans demanding strict revenge. Nonetheless, it is also looking to prevent the escalation of the ongoing war in the Middle East. Meanwhile, the country is also reeling under internal strife as the number of migrants crossing into the US through Mexico, about 10,000 per day, had reached the highest level of Biden's presidency. The surge was creating major problems, including lockdowns at a New Mexico high school where migrants were streaming across the grounds, and the closure of a rail bridge over the Rio Grande that carried commercial goods. Biden tried to come up with a solution during a talk with Mexico's President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, where Mexico enforced stricter immigration laws, making it harder for migrants from other countries to use Mexico as a route to the US. Though the crackdown made a noticeable difference as migration flow fell more than 50% in early January, the numbers have since then risen. The numbers are so high that it has led to the state of Texas taking its border precautions, even if it means defying the Biden administration and the US Supreme Court. Texas Governor Greg Abbott declared that he would install razor wires to deter illegal immigration, while 25 Republican governors have expressed their solidarity with the Texas governor for taking a step to protect American citizens from the high levels of illegal migrants. As the elections in the United States approach, the border crisis will surely be the top priority. However, if we see a larger picture, during Joe Biden's first 3 years in office, nearly 8 million illegal border encounters occurred. For Biden, securing the nation's southern border needs to be a top concern. If it is not for national security, it has to be important if Biden is seeking re-election, because his rival Donald Trump has openly and various times shown his support for border security while criticizing Biden's administration for failing to protect the country's borders. Trump has promised a crackdown on illegal immigration if elected to a second 4-year term in office. A wide range of complexities surround the Joe Biden administration, including both geopolitical and internal matters, which are aligned with the upcoming US presidential elections. Hence, it becomes crucial to note how the US president intends to navigate his path through the complexities, outlining the best strategies possible to tackle the global predicaments and internal conflicts. While choosing best of the plan of action ahead of the presidential elections is also essential, it is pertinent to note that Biden is already facing a significant threat to his political career as the Republican-controlled House of Representatives has united to formally open an impeachment inquiry into the president and his son, Hunter Biden. Although exceptions loom over, keeping in mind Trump's defamations and impeachments, various reports claim that former President Donald Trump stands a big chance to win upcoming presidential elections. Despite the fact that Trump is the favorite Republican nominee, there is considerable uncertainty when it comes to general elections. In case Trump does win the elections, he is capable of disrupting the status quo, and it would have heavy implications to the already ongoing turmoil. The challenge here is to do it in a way in which he would be able to provide justice to his allies and also earn the confidence of the Americans to get re-elected.